Sean, I'm super happy to have you here, and I'm really excited for this conversation today. And one of the reasons why I think is because I'm at the point where I think you were a few years ago, where I kind of just started my podcast and I want to take it to all these new heights. You started your podcast and then it's exploded into all these new different things. And before we get into all of that stuff, we're going to go into detail, but can you just maybe very quickly just introduce yourself to people who might not know who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sean Meister. I'm super proud Nova Scotian. I grew up here in Nova Scotia. I was born actually up in Nunavut. So my father,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Okay.
my father was teaching in Iqaluit. It was called Frobisher Bay at the time. So I was born there. First 3 years of my life were there, but then we moved home when I was 3 to the family farm in New Ross. So my whole life was a tiny town in the middle of Nova Scotia. So everyone else got the ocean life. I got fields and trees.
Yeah.
So I grew up there on a family farm, 200-year-old family farm, cattle, trees, all that kind of fun stuff. And then, I went off to Acadia University to do poli-sci. And the day after my convocation, I got on a train, which is like a really old thing to say. I got on a train and moved away from Nova Scotia. And honestly, that's probably what started the journey to where I am today, was those 10 years that I lived away between Ontario and Alberta, and doing a bunch of different stuff, and then came home in 2017.
What was it like growing up in Nova Scotia, and why do you think that it's so important to you?
I think everyone had a very unique experience growing up in Nova Scotia. So it's like, I don't think you can paint it with one brush. My experience was pretty different because I think, people have this image of what Nova Scotia is. Mine was, it was really small. I mean, the family property we had out there was large, but that was my bubble. So in a lot of ways, even though like I had parents that had traveled a lot, by the time I'd come along, they had set their roots down. We were living in New Ross, Nova Scotia with 1,000 other people. So my experience was, I kind of didn't know the rest of the world was out there. And I was laughing. I didn't really identify as a Nova Scotian. I was just a kid living on a farm. So it was really unique. I mean, growing up on a farm is a tough thing. It's also a super fun thing to do. But it was awesome. It had the nature all around me. I had complete freedom to go and do stuff. We'd travel around playing hockey and things like it was a great experience, but it was also, I think looking back on it as a 40-year-old now, it was also really limiting. It's
interesting.
It was one of those things that the bubble was so small that it's taken me a lot of my life to understand what else and who else is out there.
Right.
Which is why I maybe became so obsessed with the idea of people moving away, because I went through that experience and it completely changed who I was and shook me to my core because my upbringing was really small.
Yeah. Well, how did it change you? And like, what were the things that were shaking you?
Well, I mean, I always say I grew up the first, probably like 13 years of my life just seeing everyone else that looked like me. Like I thought the world was New Ross, Nova Scotia. So when I went out into the world, so I finished Acadia and then I went and did a public relations program at Niagara College in Ontario.
Okay.
So the reason I picked Niagara College was my now wife was finishing her education at Brock. So I went and did that, and I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
So I thought I was going to come back to Nova Scotia. It was like a temporary thing. And then I was graduating into the 2008 recession, and there was no staying in the East when that happened. So, but when I landed in Southern Ontario, it was actually shocking. It was a small city, so it was St. Catharines, Ontario.
Yeah. I'm actually from Ontario.
Yeah.
So
I know the area. It's even within the context of the GTA and Niagara, like it's a small city.
Yeah.
But it was
compared to where you're from.
Compared to where I'm from. So I went out into the world and it changed me entirely because I realized that other people lived other ways. There are other experiences. And it's hard to realize that when your world is a couple 100 acres of trees and fields in Nova Scotia. And, cultural diversity wasn't really part of that. So that was probably the biggest thing was getting out into the world didn't remind me, it showed me that there were just so many other ways to live life. And that's pretty shocking to a kid that just had this very sort of one-track mind.
Yeah.
So it took a lot. It was constantly a soul searching of being like, oh, these assumptions I had maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, yeah.
And thankfully, I grew up in Nova Scotia, so I don't stop talking. So at least I wanted to talk to people
Right, get to understand.
and learn from them. But it was those first few years really they shook me.
Yeah. Were there anything that really caught your attention or caught your mind about, like you said, it opened yourself up to all these new experiences and ways to live? Was there anything I was like, wow, this is actually really cool that I had no idea people live this way, and you kind of want to almost incorporate into things that you do?
Food.
Yeah.
Food was probably food has always been sort of for me the door opener to everything. It's the way I tell people to experience Nova Scotia and Nova Scotians, and it's the way I learned I had to start learning how to experience the rest of the world. It just going up to somebody that I knew and I was like, "Oh, tell me all about your background and your culture." It was kind of awkward,
Right.
but if they were kind enough to welcome me in for a meal or say, I remember, so the first experience I had, so in Calgary it would have been, in when I was in Ontario for that year, I kept it still pretty, meat and potatoes.
Right. Yeah.
Upbringing. Then I went out to Calgary and I was working with a bunch of folks that they like to go out every so often and try, have different meals. And they took me for Vietnamese food. And I remember sitting there and I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I don't know what I don't know what to order. I don't know what to order. And we had folks around the table that had lived in Vietnam, and so there was more to it than just going out to get Vietnamese food.
Right. Yeah.
And there were chopsticks, and I was like,
Uh-oh.
and everyone else was using them, and it was like, but it was such a disarming experience, but it allows you to have that conversation. Food for me was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Just discovering that there were. I know it sounds ridiculous. I feel like so small town saying it when I go.
It doesn't.
When I go back and look at it, but it's like, just to know there was other food.
Mm.
And over food, I learned so much about people and the world, and it made me just want to know them, and it made me want to tell them about me. So that it was this real easy way to start a conversation. So
Yeah.
I always say food was the thing for me.
Food and drink and socializing with people. I mean, yeah, I think that's one of those things that's almost universal, I think, where people just get together, hey, you meet someone new, come over to my house. We're going to have some drinks, or we're going to have some food. And we're just going to get to know each other.
Well, and it's an intimate experience to be invited to someone's table, whether it's at a restaurant or at their house. Like most of us are used to, sitting around the table with family. We grew up with that, so it's a very intimate experience to eat. And I've always felt that. So to invite someone in is a really big invitation,
because it's into their own little world in a sense.
They're
not
wanting,
little world, but yeah.
But it's like they're telling you a story.
Yeah.
This is who I am, and when you're eating, you don't eat in silence. You have to talk.
Yeah.
It's awkward as hell as if you're not talking.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna eat. I mean, I find it with business too. It's great. I love business lunches because the formality kind of goes away.
Mm-hmm.
I will often order something that's super messy just because it creates this sort of disarming thing. I'm like,
yeah.
If you can sit across from the table from me while I'm eating a taco and you still want to do business with me, I think we probably can do business together.
Yeah. With those hot chicken wings and you're just sweating buckets or whatever.
Yeah. It's like, and I don't eat slow. So it's like, I'm not a comfortable person at the table. I'm just who I am.
Yeah.
And so you really understand whether you've got something, whether there's a connection there, but it is I think it says so much when someone invites you to their table. And you have to respect that by coming into it with a sense of curiosity and an openness to share. I mean, I think that's the one thing a Nova Scotia upbringing taught me is like, I just share who I am. But I think nothing better than a table to do that.
This is going to tie into what we're going to talk about with what you're doing now and having all your sociables and all the ways that you get people from all around the world to kind of sit together at a table and have great conversations. So we're gonna get there. The one thing I wanted to ask you, because I was saying food is kind of a universal thing, but that experience of, because you always kind of came back to Nova Scotia and you're Nova Scotian at heart and all that kind of stuff. Do you see it kind of in your travels and the people that you've met? Is that a thing that most people kind of have to the town or community that they're born into? Or do you think there's something specifically inherent about Nova Scotia itself that is, it's just Nova Scotians just kind of have this way? What are your thoughts there?
Within Canada, for sure. So within Canada, I always say what I've seen is that the people that are most connected to home when they're away are the Newfoundlanders and the Nova Scotians. People in PEI as well. It's smaller, so you don't hear it as much, but I've been getting to see that more within Canada. Like when I was living away, within expat communities, you could always tell that there was something different about especially Newfoundlanders and Nova Scotians, because we would always talk about home in a very different way. That ritual of returning at least once a year was critical, and definitely saw that in other cultures and communities. Like, you really saw it, when I was living out west in Filipino communities and Vietnamese communities. Like, there was a real draw to home, and that needing to get back. It was a reconnection with self that was critical. But then, for my wife being from Southern Ontario and born and raised, for her, we always would talk about that. She's like, I'm not drawn to go back. She's like, that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
But it's like the need to go back, the need to reconnect with others of a shared experience, it wasn't there.
Interesting.
But across the board with Nova Scotians, absolutely. It was a necessity.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I know for me, I grew up in Sudbury, Ontario, and it's kind of the same way where I feel like because I guess Sudbury, I don't know if you've ever been up there.
Oh, I've been.
Yeah. So it's not the nicest of towns, but I do find myself wanting to go home, not so much because of, I have family there, so it's nice obviously to be close to family, but I feel like I'm more connected to like the nature and the surroundings, and I want to go up there because there's so many lakes, there's so many outdoor activities to do. And I don't know, I kind of put that as to kind of why I like Nova Scotia as well so much, because I feel like there's kind of a part of home here as well too, because you have the oceans on the coast, but you go to the interior, there's also like 1,000 lakes and all that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of things to do here too. So yeah, it's just interesting.
It's certainly, it's an individualized thing too. It's like, I don't want to paint it with a brush that it was every Nova Scotian.
Right.
But it was proportionally way higher. And I always say it came back to how we identified ourselves. For me, when I was away, I was a Nova Scotian. I was always a Nova Scotian, and I became more Nova Scotian when I left.
When you left home?
When I left the province, honestly, I don't think I identified as a Nova Scotian until I left. I left, and suddenly I was a Nova Scotian. And that's not unique to me. That's something I've heard from people over and over and over again.
Is it one of those things where you don't realize what you have until it's gone kind of thing?
It's absolutely that. And I think once we went out into the world, we realized that we were kind of unique. And I think that first experience of coming across someone from home when you're just traveling randomly, that is sort of that trigger moment of be like, maybe we are a bit different, because like the way we react to each other is so different, because it is that person becomes an in the moment connection to home. You're kind of like, you create this little bubble where you talk about things and you talk in a certain way where your accent comes out, that suddenly in that little tiny pocket, maybe it's a coffee shop or whatever, you're in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And then you exit out of that conversation, you're a little recharged. That's not what I heard from people across the board. It was something that was definitely different.
Yeah.
That need to recharge our batteries through connection.
Do you remember like the first time that you met someone outside of Nova Scotia that was Nova Scotian, or like maybe the most memorable time where you kind of had that feeling?
Living in Calgary, you could throw a rock and hit someone from Nova Scotia.
Okay.
So, I worked with people that went to school here, and it created that sense of, I think that's why I felt so comfortable, was because of that sense of home. I think for me, where it's become even more impactful is in these last few years as I've been traveling around the world, where I kind of expected to meet Nova Scotians in Calgary. And I expected to meet Nova Scotians in Toronto. So it was a pleasant surprise that really was necessary. It's hard, though. It was a lot of work. As I've been traveling around, like, I think one of my favorite ones was I was in Berlin a few years ago, and I checked into a hotel, and I handed over my Nova Scotia driver's license. Yeah. And the woman behind the counter stopped, and she looked at it, and she looked at me, and she's like, my grandmother's from Nova Scotia.
Oh, right on.
And I was like, I'm in this random cheap hotel in Berlin.
Right.
And suddenly we're talking about Nova Scotia. And I went from just kind of going through my day to just having the best day of my life.
Yeah.
Because and I was like, okay, well now she and I, we, every time we saw each other, we nodded, chatted, talked. Like,
it was like that connection.
That connection. Yeah. I was always seeking it out in some way, shape, or form, just because I kind of needed the fix. I needed to because I suppressed my accent when I went away,
Okay.
sort of purposefully. So in those moments, I could be me. I could just let it flow, and really. So it was I really needed it.
Are you suppressing your accent now, or is this coming through? Maybe because I've been here for a while. I don't know if I notice. I mean, obviously, if I go to like Newfoundland or whatever, I can hear that. But I don't know so much about the Nova Scotian accent.
I probably in this moment am talking a little bit more professional, Sean.
Okay.
So if you were at one of my events around the world, it comes out a little bit thicker. I can regulate it.
Okay, that's interesting.
But when I let it loose, so my mom's a Newfoundlander.
Oh, okay.
And so when I really want to let it go, it goes. But that was a learned behavior for me, and I still sort of unconsciously control it.
Yeah.
And I don't exactly know why. I think I went out into the world kind of fearful that people would judge me for being from Nova Scotia. Because I had.
Where do you think that came from?
I mean, I think there's a bit of that built into the culture. I think subconsciously is there's been a history of sort of, I would say, people, especially in the 70s, 80s, and things like, for talking to my parents and things like that, there was that experience of maybe the East Coast being seen as a little brother. We kind of get patted on the head and be like, that's nice.
Right. From the rest of Canada.
From the rest of Canada. Yeah. And, the way that we were viewed and the way we were treated, again, maybe not purposefully, it built into this culture of like, are we lesser than? And I think that for me growing up in rural Nova Scotia, that's especially, pronounced, is not only are you in Nova Scotia, you're in rural Nova Scotia.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, it's us against Halifax.
Right.
And then Halifax against Cape Breton. And then Nova Scotia against the world. And so it's kind of embedded in that. And I find myself consistently identifying things about myself that I'm like, oh, maybe I'm either suppressing parts of myself or I'm maybe suppressing the potential because of the way I viewed myself as a Nova Scotian in the early days. The sort of the self-deprecating humor that's across the board in Nova Scotia. It can be kind of funny, but also like, why are we always self-deprecating?
Yeah, right. Almost like a coping mechanism, maybe, or something like that. I don't know.
It's sort of like how the old advice of like, how do you deal with a bully? Well, make fun of yourself first.
Right. Yeah. So there's nothing for them to latch onto.
You do that too many times, though. Do you start to believe the joke?
Right. Yeah.
And I think for me, again, I'm 40 years old. I would say I've only really come into my own in terms of confidence within the past 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
The rest of the time has constantly sort of been, as somebody in my career and in my life, sort of was pretty self-deprecating in terms of my own potential. Yeah. So that's the other side of the coin. That's the other, for me as a Nova Scotian, I embrace that's sometimes part of it, especially as a rural Nova Scotian.
Yeah, I think that's a hard thing that a lot of people struggle with in terms of not knowing quite who you are or how to act in front of other people. And it takes time to develop that confidence to know who you are. I mean, forgetting about where you're born, but just anybody in general. And especially when you're starting or thinking about starting business. Oh. And you're like, the imposter syndrome or the no one's going to buy any of my stuff or my product is terrible. I'm terrible. Like it's just constant.
I mean, entrepreneurship for the vast majority of people, I think it does a great job of reinforcing any negative thoughts we have about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's like, unless you hit something amazing from day one, you're consistently being shown directly or indirectly by potential partners, customers, whatever, things that should make you sit and go, am I wrong?
Yeah.
Is this like the whole experience is about looking in the mirror and being like, I think I could be all wrong.
Yeah.
What am I doing to myself? And there's those few unicorns out there that they just go into it with such confidence. And I always look to them with such envy, where they're just like, no, it's going to work. And I was like, oh God, I wish I had that.
Had that confidence.
That is not my founder experience. For me, it's just been this slow process of being like consistently telling myself, this is ridiculous. What are you doing? Just get a job, put your head down, and you can find yourself at 65, when you retire. The whole experience is horrible for confidence.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially too, when you can go, it's like all about you're doing work and you could be doing it for 2 years and you're not even going to know if you're actually on the right path.
Oh,
but that's what it is. It's like,
yeah,
you got to know like in there, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing like unpaid bills to make you think like you've taken the wrong path.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, shit. last $1,000 in the bank. Which way do I go?
Cool.
Yeah.
Don't worry, the mortgage will get paid. I think.
Exactly.
So no, it's certainly not something you do to make yourself feel amazing about yourself in the early days. At least I think that's what most founders will say to each other. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of like I say it's very comparable to like having kids. The experience of being a parent is awful and beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like every day you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is the worst decision I've ever made. I'm going to destroy this life.
This person,
like
exactly.
what am I going to, and then at the same time, you wake up every day. For me, I wake up every day and be like, how did I not do this? Or like, this is the most rewarding part of my life. It's the same.
100%.
It's the exact same thing with what I'm trying to do with Global Bluenosers. Every day, over a 5 a.m. coffee, it's just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this to myself? And then I start doing the work and I was like, oh my God, what if I have to go work for someone else again?
Yeah.
Like,
then it snaps you back in. It's like, oh yeah, no, focus.
It's like, no, this is the best thing in my day is that, this is because I get to look at myself and say, this is on me. It kind of goes back to the farming mentality. Effort in, results out.
Yeah.
If you don't put the hay in the barn, there's no feed for the cattle.
Yeah.
So it's the same for the business. If I don't do the stuff that day that feels really awful, I'm not going to get to where I dream of or that I know can become the end result.
Yeah.
So there's a lot I always call farmers the original entrepreneurs. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
It's the same sort of like grind.
Yeah, that's such a good analogy thinking about kids as well too, because when you hear people talking about it, like, oh, kids are horrible, they cry and and yeah, it's true, but you're missing the overall joy of raising a family and raising this other person and just all the joyful moments that you have with it. It's like you can't beat that experience of having kids.
I'm looking older because of it, and I'm a better person because of it at the same time. It's a bizarre balancing act.
Yeah. That's a really good way to think about it. Okay, you talked about leaving Nova Scotia, and then all of a sudden that's kind of when I became a Nova Scotian. What was the drive and the impetus to kind of come back and be like, okay, you know what? I've had enough of up there, even though it was great, learned a whole bunch of different things from different people. But why did you want to come back?
I mean, the intent for me was always to come back, and that's not every expat or diaspora member's intention. Each person kind of falls into a certain category. I was always the one that was going to come home. That was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I always say 5 of my 10 years were trying to get home. And,
okay.
And so it was similar like effort. So because this is, especially after I left and I started to sort of look at Nova Scotia from outside and started to have conversations with other Nova Scotians, and I really had the desire to come back and do something because I didn't want to leave. Like I went so that I could be, where my future wife was going to be, but I thought I was going to go right back home. And then suddenly I realized there was no economic opportunity. No one would take my call. Like,
it was that bad, eh?
Like, to me, Nova Scotia didn't want me.
Mm-hmm.
And
took it personally.
And I took it personally, and I was angry. And I talked to lots of other people that were like, yeah, I left because I had to leave. Because it's like, for me, I graduated with a ton of student debt. Acadia wasn't cheap. University's not cheap.
It's not cheap, yep.
I had to pay those bills. And when I looked at what the potential was in Nova Scotia at that point, one, I wasn't going to get the job. And if I did, I wouldn't pay my bills. And so when I left and started looking at that, I was like, okay, can I come home and do something about that? Because I really believe that each person can do something. It doesn't, you don't change the world, but you can move the needle ever so slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And so the final trigger moment for us was when my daughter was born. So we moved home when she was 9 months old. So we came back, but I came back because those stars aligned. My first job when I came home was in economic development. It was like finding myself. I spent 10 years doing jobs that was like,
it's just a job, pays the bills for now. Yeah,
it's like clickety clack at a computer. I didn't really feel much, and I'm a purpose driven person. I have to feel something when I'm doing my work. Because life is a one-way street, and I really am wanting to pack as much into the very short few decades I get. And so when that opportunity came up, I was like, oh my God, at least in a mundane task, I can look at it and say, but it's part of something bigger, and it's part of something bigger that I care about. And so once that opportunity, I had to come back, and I took a pay cut. and I dropped back in my career to do it, but I had to do it.
Yeah.
But so I just fell into that category. I was a diaspora that was going to come home no matter what.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say there's such a good feeling too, though, that even though you're taking a pay cut, but you're putting yourself in a position where you know it's going to align with your heart and what it is that you want to do, and then you know that this is just going to open up so many more doors into the future.
I mean, I found myself like I wasn't trained in economic development. I'm public relations training, poli-sci and public relations. But when I started to work on economic development and starting to work with small businesses and helping them, tackle new markets and look at how do you attract investment into the province, I was like, oh my God, like this is me. And suddenly I found this thing where it's Nova Scotia's small, but it's me. It's who I am.
Yeah.
And so that was unlocking the thing that was what I was searching for my entire career, which is, do I feel like I'm doing something of value when I wake up in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
And that clicked when I came home.
Yeah.
So it was critical.
And moving on from that too, or just expanding on that. So I do know you ended up working at a company called Volta.
Yep.
Okay. And they were like a startup incubator, I would imagine, or something like that, right?
Yep. They're the leading incubator in Atlantic Canada, based right here in Halifax, for tech companies.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is really, really cool. And so sorry, I have your position here. It was you could probably say it faster. I could look it up here. Where am I?
Director of Partnerships.
Director of Partnerships.
Yep.
Yeah. I would imagine you had lots of firsthand contact with entrepreneurs. What was that experience like working with those entrepreneurs and trying to help people, like you said, build businesses that are going to be good for themselves, but also for your home province?
I mean, the great thing was, even in economic development, I was in the agency that supported export and investment. So I got to work with entrepreneurs then too. But I was working with folks across all industries that were seeking to sell their products outside the province, products or services. So I got it at Invest Nova Scotia, called Invest Nova Scotia now, and then Volta as well. It was really valuable for me. I'd say there was so much about it that was valuable. Probably the biggest thing was helping me unlock my own desire to do it. It gave me so much more insight and respect for the value of entrepreneurship to our broader economic future. So I kind of grew up, I was working in forestry, and it was always looking at the big companies, Bowater, Michelin, Clearwater. These were the things that were like, we have an economy because of these. And absolutely, those big companies are critical. What I never thought about was the on the ground, like either the Main Street business or the consultant, or the person trying to create a CPG brand to sell, cookies around the world. Like
CPG is
consumer packaged goods.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So someone, and I fell in love with that industry. Again, food and drink. It goes, because for me, when I was living away, that was the critical thing, was getting food from home. And so people that were then making products from Nova Scotia to sell to the world, I developed a special affinity for. But it gave me so much more insight into their impact, also their challenges, and made me understand just how difficult it is to start, run, maintain, and scale a business when you're starting from the ground up.
From the beginning, basically, yeah.
And so it just gave me so much more respect for entrepreneurs, because it's not linear. The experience is unique to each person.
Yeah.
And it gave me insight into just how lonely the experience can be, and how critical community and how critical support is.
Yeah.
Because if we don't give it to them here, there's lots of other places in the world that they can get it. And it's a global world. Like, people can travel, people can relocate. And so it just gave me so much more insight into the importance of understanding the needs of entrepreneurs, and to, better respect the critical element they had in driving our economy forward. So, I that's where I really developed just such a love for founders, as complex as they are. We're anyone.
Yeah, we're a strange bunch.
If you're drawn into it, and now I get to call myself part of the category, like, we're not normal. Like, there's something, there's an imbalance, I think, because it is, again, we seem to want to torture ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to feed that. And that's really what doing those roles taught me, coming home, because it just brought it down to being so much more real.
So you touched on quite a few things there in terms of the difficulties that entrepreneurs can have, whether it's loneliness or whether it's just very difficult getting your products out there and all those kinds of things. Can we maybe just think about the entrepreneur hat here for a second and maybe offer a little bit of feedback or some advice from our listeners who might be thinking about doing stuff as an entrepreneur? Can you maybe give some examples or an example of what you kind of would see kind of consistently that people would do wrong when they're starting a business, or maybe some pitfalls that people might want to avoid if they're starting their business?
I think probably the biggest problem I've seen is people that fall too much in love with their idea. The real challenge with entrepreneurship is that you think that you've found something. I think I've solved a problem. This could be huge. If you fall too in love with that idea without validating it, you are going to be in a world of hurt. It's going to be heartbreaking. So that has always been, and it's the thing I feel like I've learned the most. Volta was really a place that taught me that. Was as good as an idea might be, you have to validate that somebody wants to pay you for it. Is there a market for your idea? I'm doing the same thing, even though Global Bluenosers is not for profit. We have to go through the exact same. We're getting ready to go through that exact same process. I've been doing customer discovery calls. I've been doing all those things. You have to know, are people going to separate themselves from their dollars for your idea? Is the problem you're solving big enough?
Yeah.
Is it painful enough in their life that they want it solved, or does their current solution do the job? So I think the biggest thing is, you fall too in love with your idea.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, because it's all about, I guess, product market fit. And too oftentimes you see someone, they think they have a great idea because they just love it for whatever reason, and they're just not willing to budge or move on it, which is really kind of sad though, because you're trying to make a business. And I don't know, do you know Ross Simmons?
Yes.
Who's here? Yeah. So I had him on the podcast, and he was I asked him that question of like, well, where does your kind of ego fit in, where like you have an idea for a product and, do you just kind of want to baby it? And he like cut me off right away. He's like, no, he's like, I don't care. Like, tell me what the market wants, or have the market tell me what they want.
Yep.
And I'm just going to deliver to them. And he was just like, you got to go straight to what they want, because that's how you're going to make the money. And that's how you're going to do well in business, which at the end of the day, I think that's what entrepreneurs want. They want to do good at business, not so much of have to have that specific idea work.
If you want to have an ego in entrepreneurship, build your ego around proof.
So that's good. I like that.
It's if you can say, I've got something great, here it is. The thing for me is, there are a lot of great ideas that fail. It's not that the idea was bad. It's that the idea doesn't have legs to scale. Like, to run a business, you got to make money. You have to and make money to the point that you can survive and scale and do what you need to do, whatever your objectives are. Some people have lower goals. Some people have huge goals. Yeah. But whatever that is, you got to sell. And to sell, someone has to buy it. So if the idea is not big enough to sell, if it's not solving that problem, it can still be a great idea. It can still be a great product, a great innovation. It just isn't a business.
Yeah.
So an idea is not a business.
That's a really good point to look at it, because I think even when I was younger, it's like I had this idea, and then how am I going to make money off of it, right? Yeah. So it was just kind of an idea, but I was just like kind of in love with it. And I think
it's such a trap. It's such a trap to, and I've had that same problem. And it's like, that's sort of for me every day. And I've set timelines for myself with Global Bluenosers. Is I know, because we've been building it quietly for a couple of years, that, I don't have the leeway of saying, all right, I'm going to start now. I already started long ago. So I've had to set the timeline that by this point in time, I should have done these major milestones that will give me the signals to tell me if this is a thing. And I want it to be a thing. I desperately want it to be a thing. And all the evidence tells me it can be, but until it is, it isn't. And so I think one of the things I've seen in Atlantic Canada, not just Nova Scotia, but in Atlantic Canada, is that we do have a lot of businesses that have maybe survived longer than they should. And I think understanding when you reach that point that it's not going, it's time to tap out.
And you mean they've like not overstayed their welcome, but their idea itself wasn't so sound, or their business wasn't so sound.
It's not
they should have folded kind of earlier. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those things. I think a huge show of strength in an entrepreneur is understanding when it's time to tap out. You don't do it too early, but you shouldn't do it too late. Because if you do it in that sweet spot, you've now built sort of the calluses that you need. I think that's the great thing about a founder is they're going to do it again. But if you wait too long, if you don't learn the lessons of when is the time to stop and restart, then what happens is those are the bad habits. I look at it like a sports analogy.
Yeah.
If you don't, we're both hockey players. If you don't teach those fundamental skills to get bad habits out of your game, you're going to keep doing them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might try out for 100 teams. You're going to keep getting cut because you still have the same bad habits. Entrepreneurship's the same. Is you got to know when you're onto something and you got to know when you're not.
Yeah, it's so difficult though, because we were talking about even just like half an hour ago where we're saying, you don't know if you're on the right way for like, it could be a couple of years. And then now you're saying it's like, well, you don't want to go too long. So it's like, you got to find the sweet spot, which I agree with you 100%, but it's also very difficult. But I think that's what surrounding yourself with good people or going to organizations like Volta or whatever, having those coaches or those people that you can talk to to help you figure out when is the right time to either keep going or to, pack up shop and start something else.
Other founders are your best friends. So I'm a huge believer in community. Every founder needs community, whether it's a couple people or a couple hundred people. I don't care what it is, but you need to have other people who are invested in you as a person, invested in you as a founder, because if they're truly in your community, if they're truly invested in you, they're going to challenge you in a way that you need. Because I think because being a founder can be lonely, you're often building it within four walls by yourself to start. You don't have that experienced voice saying, do you understand what success looks like? So you've got this idea, so many people focus on the product exclusively.
Right.
But then it's like, but what is that success going to look like? Because if you know what success is going to look like, then you can build the roadmap with the signals that are going to tell you, am I progressing along there? Because otherwise you're just grasping and you don't have that foundation. You don't have that roadmap to tell you what next thing you need to be hitting. And other founders are going to be the best ones to challenge you on that. And I've been getting that for myself is, people ask questions that make you uncomfortable. The people that only ask you questions that make you feel good about yourself, probably they're great to have. But if you have just those people in your life, you got to rethink it.
It's like your mom just telling you, "Oh, yeah, it's great. I listened to your first podcast. It was the best thing ever." It's like, okay, those ones are. Yeah, it's nice to hear, but
it's a perfect analogy, actually. So yeah, you need that sort of tough coach in your life, who asks the questions because they desperately want to see you succeed. They're not asking it to be a jerk. They're asking it because they know you have to have the answer.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I think maybe this is a good point to actually talk about Global Bluenosers. Can you just maybe explain exactly what it is that Global Bluenosers?
It's a tongue twister.
It does.
That's part of the branding is really getting people to learn how to twist those S's and L's. Yeah. So Global Bluenosers, it's at its core, it's a diaspora community. So a lot of people don't know the word diaspora in Canada. So it's a community, a professional community focused on individuals who have been shaped by Nova Scotia in some way, shape, or form. They grew up here. They went to school here. They have, for some other reason, love this place, but they no longer live here. It's an organization, we're a federal not-for-profit, to give them a place to connect with each other and build a stronger sense of self and identity with others like themselves around the world. We all are looking for professional communities. We're not a network, we're a community. There's a difference.
That is a difference, yeah.
So it is a community that's meant to drive the success of ambitious Bluenosers around the world. The other side of it is that we're an organization focused on building that community for the goal of then activating it on a scale that drives the most value for the province, especially from an economic development lens. And I can kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what that looks like, but that ultimately it's about building a community of Nova Scotians that lift each other up, make them stronger and better in their lives and careers, and then through that make the province stronger by opening up the world.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I imagine there's a bunch of different ways that you can do that. And it's going to be a learning thing for me too, because I'm gonna ask you about that, because I'm not sure what that is. But before we get into that, I just want to talk about how you started this too, because you started, as I said earlier, you started this as an actual podcast. So can you give me the like, why did you decide to want to start this podcast and have these discussions with Nova Scotians? Because I think that's what it was, right? It's like, I'm just going to start a podcast talking to Nova Scotians or whatever. I don't know what else you had in mind, but you just walk me through that beginning experience, that inception.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'd always been interested in diaspora communities when I was living away. So I will always say that seed was planted.
Okay.
So I always knew there was value in the community. But then what really took off was in COVID. So early days of COVID is when I started to lean into LinkedIn as my main social media platform. And I started to just share my love for Nova Scotia. And I just happened to always have a lens of showcasing, nature and the companies and the people that are creating a better Nova Scotia. The people that really flocked to that content in those early days were expats. They were the diaspora, because it was sort of that perfect time where they couldn't come home. And so suddenly I was this like piece of Nova Scotia in their feed every single day.
Sending it out to them.
Yeah. So like they couldn't come here. And so what ended up happening was they'd start connecting with me and asking, like, can we just have a chat? And everyone was stuck at home. So we would just talk about home. What's the weather like? Where can you go? We were in the bubble, so we could go around. So they're like, oh, where are you going this weekend? Like really basic stuff. They were kind
of like phone chats or what
virtual phone call, whatever worked for them. But it was like, they were kind of like living vicariously through me. Yeah. And then for me, it was like, well, I should probably record these conversations. Like, these are excellent conversations, because I'm a storyteller at heart. So I'm like, these are excellent conversations. Like, because everyone was saying the things that I felt when I was away. I was like, I bet there's other people that need to hear this, because it's lonely being an expat. Yeah. It's lonely being part of the diaspora. You feel
especially COVID too. It's just lonely
especially.
Oh man, yeah.
So that was really all it was supposed to be. Was let's just get those conversations out into the world with the purpose of giving back to the people living away. You can hear other perspectives that'll make you realize that maybe those struggles you're having, or those feelings you're feeling, or the reason why you left, you're not alone. Just the basic human things that we need. And then it just started to evolve from there. And just the way my mind works, it was not too long after that I started to realize that there were clusters. We were really concentrated in particular cities and geographies around the world. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Often those locations align with where I was looking from an economic development perspective. Where do we need to build stronger bilateral trade relations? Well, there's a big community of Nova Scotians there. It's like, that's interesting. So I thought, why not throw a kitchen party? Which was a ridiculous thought to have.
And a kitchen party is just where people get together, cook food.
Just bring people together over food, drink. Okay. I don't like planning big formal events. I like to just bring people together and let them talk. And because, that's for our upbringing, you build connections in the kitchen. People come together in the kitchen and talk. And there's usually some food out and around. So that was the concept. And so a friend of mine offered up a space in Dallas, Texas, of all spots.
That was your first kitchen party, okay.
And he said, if you want to do this, I'll give you the space and the food and beverage at our law firm if you do it here. And I did some research and realized that there was actually quite a large community of like alum and expats down there. So I was like, why not? Mm-hmm. And that's when that kickstarted. So we had like 40, 50 people at that event in Dallas.
Did you do this as part of where you were working at the time, or this was just all you?
This was just me. Yeah. This was just me. I think at that point, I didn't even have a sole proprietorship. I just flew to Dallas.
Did you want to do it? Did you want to do it for just for the funsies in a sense? or was it something that you knew that there could be something there in the business? Did you have it in the back of your mind?
I knew.
Yeah, okay. So
this was a validation. Every piece was talking about that journey of like setting milestones, validation signals of potential and assumptions. So for me, okay, people want to be on the podcast. That's great. People want to talk about Nova Scotia. That's a good signal.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. Okay, good signal. Well, I'm a big believer that getting people to give you their time is probably even more valuable than them giving you their money.
Yeah.
Time is critical.
Time is money.
So I was like, okay, well, will people take time out of their day to travel to a random office in Dallas to meet other Nova Scotians? Is it that valuable to them to be part of a community? That was a critical moment.
Yeah.
And they did. And so each of this, because I had been watching what other countries had been doing, other organizations had been doing around the world for a long time. Ireland is the gold example of how to activate communities for economic development. But also Scotland, Vietnam, India, so many African nations are doing it really well. So the playbook was there.
Okay.
I just needed to validate, did it exist for Nova Scotian diaspora? And so that's what each of these steps was. I just didn't realize I was creating a business. I thought it'd be fun. And so then one event is turned into now 8 events in 4 countries, and we've hosted over 500 people.
That's crazy.
And so that was sort of the progression. But it came with struggles. I had to put the podcast on hiatus because planning events is crazy. And deciding to establish a not-for-profit, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly that looks like. So all these things of actually formalizing it put a higher and higher workload. So I've had to now think about not just let's have a fun time, but like what's the mission? Who's the right person for the community? What should their motivations be? What should the value be that we're contributing back to them so that this is sustainable? Because I think, especially in a community dimension, so many people see that sort of mountain and valley where it's like it launches and everyone's like, what a great idea.
Yeah.
And everyone signs up and then they all churn out within a couple of years.
Yeah.
So for me, it was doing those things to validate, will it be sustainable?
And I think what you're trying to get at here is that when someone joins your community, that you want to be sure that you're going to be able to provide them value such that when they do join, it's not like this big rush and then they're just like, I'm not getting anything. Why am I even part of this? And then they just leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was, there's so many different membership programs I've joined over the years that, I do it for a year and then I churn out. And so, it's really understanding what does value look like. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but you have to understand it and then build the processes and build the experience around that. And that's really what so much of the past 6 months has been, is really trying to go deep on what that value looks like, and trying to take my own opinion out of it and just let the community tell me.
Yeah. What are they telling you right now?
It's one of those things that for the ideal profile of person, the most critical element is that sense of community is it in and of itself is a value. So they're somebody that has to be ambitious in their career and in their own journey. So they want to have contacts for more than just social. They want to be able to access a community that is going to be of other people that are ambitious and well connected that can help them, whether with whatever they're doing, their own personal growth, their career growth, whether they're trying to do sales for a company, whatever that might look like. What I heard was that if the barrier to entry is that the shared identity of Nova Scotia is the piece, that in and of itself is value because it's not just another random chamber membership or whatever. So that was critical element. Storytelling is a key part. Keep us connected to home. Tell us what's going on. It's one of the things that I experienced away was it's hard to stay connected to Nova Scotia because you're living somewhere else. You're living 2 lives. So can we be the place where they get everything they need to know to stay informed about what's going on in Nova Scotia and what else is going on in the community? So who's progressing and things like that. And then giving them opportunities to come together and build those relationships. So in-person experiences, in-person events, really critical, consistently. And then the other piece of it is for the ideal profile is of somebody that then is seeking avenues to contribute. So that we then create the opportunities for them to have a contribution back to Nova Scotia that they feel like is actually doing something. So for us, that means finding ways for them to support companies that are looking to tackle the world.
And when you're saying looking to support companies, in what way does that look like?
It's everything from, them getting on the phone with a founder to say, okay, you're targeting Germany. Let me tell you about the business culture here.
Right.
So it can be everything from as basic as that to serving on a board, to making sales introductions. But it's really about that, advisory, mentorship, introductory services. and supports and in other ways, people will want to contribute capital. So they're going to want to understand who are the companies that are really moving the needle in Nova Scotia, and how can I contribute to them?
Right.
But really basing it around what are the objectives of the companies and what are the capacities of the community and then creating the alignment between those two. That's the focus for us.
I'm just trying to think here too, because for me, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get more plugged into the community, at least in Nova Scotia here. As you know, obviously talking to people and learning about people, what other people are doing as well too. So, I mean, it sounds like for me, I'm just like, go sign me up because I want to be part of this because it sounds really, really good. So like, I'm just loving everything you're saying. And I'm just trying to think about the different ways that, I like to think of it twofold. Like, how could I benefit from joining this community in terms of, finding other people to come on the podcast, as an example, is what I'm thinking straight away. But then on the other part, I'm like, well, how can I also help to contribute to helping other people as well too? Like, I don't have, I can't contribute capital or anything like that because I'm just a small time guy. But if there's ways that I can help other people, I don't know, like, is there anything that you can say? So maybe this is a little bit too niche because it's just more me asking you specifically, but do you see any ways that I could help contribute to your community?
Well, think about someone with your expertise. So we talked about this before you hit record, is think about it. If you're part of a closed community of Nova Scotians around the world, there's likely going to be a bunch of them either personally or through their businesses or whatever are probably looking to create content like this.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
So you have I had an expert in Ireland sum it up in 3 ways. People in diaspora communities can contribute with their time, their treasure, or their talent.
Right.
And so for you look at it, it's like, okay, well, and same for me, it's like, I don't have the capital to invest in companies, but I can certainly...
Not yet anyways, right?
Not yet.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. But it's like, but I can give advice. I can make connections. I can give guidance. Like for you could jump on a 30-minute call with someone who's looking to be a better storyteller in their business. Or maybe they want to start their own show.
Right.
And they're just like, I don't know where to start. I'm going to buy all this expensive equipment here and be like, hold on.
Yeah.
That's significant value to somebody.
Yeah.
And I think we often forget how important sharing our maybe very niche experience can change someone else's. I see this all the time is with, like, say, LinkedIn. People ask me questions about LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, I thought everybody realized because I've been doing it.
You've been doing it for years.
For years.
Like second nature. Yeah.
So it's like that sharing of knowledge can be so impactful. So you don't have to overthink it.
Well, I love that too, because I love teaching, and it's just, I did some teaching in university and stuff like that too, and seeing that aha moment in students is really cool. And yeah, like I said, even for what you're saying, like setting up cameras and audio stuff, I've been doing it for like 15 years. It's like, I'm like, how does not everybody know this? But yeah, people, it took me like how long to learn that? So happy to share that. So yeah, that's really cool. That makes a lot of sense to me.
It's kind of like hockey. Is like I get out on the ice to coach hockey, and I'm just like, skating and stopping and all this second nature now.
Yeah.
And then it's like suddenly you're like, oh, well, how do I teach that? And just teaching someone how to stop can change their experience on the ice.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Whereas like
instead of using the boards
instead of slamming into something. But it's like, again, it's like that is second nature to us.
Yeah.
And so the knowledge sharing, and that's where community over network.
Yeah.
Networks are transactional. Communities are supportive,
and people want to actually help other people that are within the community.
It's a give first mentality. Is you don't come into if you come into Global Bluenosers thinking about what you're going to get, you're probably not going to be a fit. Now that makes it a niche community, which is what the intent was.
Yeah.
But if the thing about Nova Scotians is that we typically end every conversation asking how we can help. Because we're in a very much a give first mentality as a people, whether we're from here or we've chosen to live here or we've been built by going to university here, we become Nova Scotians in one shape. And giving first is a component to that.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
really cool.
That's what makes a community.
It's very difficult to find like mentors or people to be able to coach you and whatever. But this seems like this community would be just such a great way to just, even like you said, even if you don't have much to be able to contribute. if you're willing to help out and willing to talk to people, and then people are going to want to reciprocate and give that back as well too. So
it's human nature,
Yeah.
and it's I think is what again, I'm so big on little wins and simplicity. Is, I've seen it in the community when we did our first event in London. Several of the people in the room had just landed in London. Like, they literally just moved there.
London, England, or
London, England.
Okay. London, Ontario.
Yeah, I haven't targeted London, Ontario quite yet. But you had, several young professionals who had just arrived in London. That's an intimidating place. Well, if you're in a room with people that have been there 20 years and you don't have to walk up and figure out, how am I going to start this conversation? You start the conversation of like, what's your connection to Nova Scotia? You've got a shared experience right there. Just that of a young professional having someone to walk them through life in London, or be able to introduce them to people they should talk to in London.
Yeah.
For the person that's been there 20 years, that is literally nothing.
Exactly.
Like, it's just like, yeah, okay. It's advice. It's second nature. But for the person on the receiving end, it's huge. That person, that young person that receives that advice, 20 years down the road, if they're still in London, they become that person in the room.
Or maybe even faster too, because it won't
faster.
even take them 20 years because they're all almost jumped all that.
So it's really that sort of, it's very self-fulfilling is around that. But it's, I've had a lot of people be like, what are the really it's like, it's not complex. It's like, what do people need? People need a sense of belonging. So they need a community. They need to have others. If you're arriving as an expat or a young professional or even an older professional into a new city, you need to not feel alone. Loneliness is it's the sense of belonging is what every diaspora community is about, is that you're not alone. You might be away from home, but you're not alone. That's the critical piece to it. And then from the business perspective is like, why overthink it with like big cohort type things? It's like, what do companies need? I had this conversation with an entrepreneur on the South Shore a couple weeks ago. And it's like, we've all been invited to these roundtables with whether people from industry associations or from government. And there's always the question of, what do you need? Money.
Yeah.
Like, and not to be, but it's like, the business doesn't survive if we don't make sales.
Yeah.
So we need revenue. That is one of the most critical things. So when I look at a company that's looking to grow globally, how do you get revenue? Yes, you need sales introduction, sure. But you need to have cultural awareness. You need to have legal awareness. You need to have financial awareness. You need to understand, how am I going to do business there, and do it in a way that's not going to take away, it's going to add to me as a business. So that ability to give advice from someone on the ground is so critical. And it can be as simple as, don't come to London during that week. Like, I remember having that conversation where it's like, looking to do an event or looking to travel somewhere for business, and someone's like, that's school holidays.
Yeah. You would never have known.
Don't go. Because I'm working on my mind. I was like, oh, it's not March break. It's not summer break. And it's like, they're like, don't do that. Just little things like that can make a huge impact. And so that's really if people come into it thinking that it's going to be like this revolutionary, like huge thing. No, it's just about going to the core elements of success for people and for businesses.
And is that how you see yourself, or you see Global Bluenosers doing that economic growth within Nova Scotia? It's just people coming together to make sure that we can all kind of, help out each other for our own success. And then through that success, we're just all going to grow.
Well, I really see us as an organization that is running along parallel to all the other organizations. We're not about creating all new things.
Right.
We're about augmenting what's already going on. So if there's already companies going into a market, well, don't do a generic networking event. Do a Global Bluenosers event, because it's going to be higher value. The people in the room are more invested in the success of those businesses because there's an emotional component. And I'm a big proponent of emotional tie to outcomes. And so it's those little things. It's like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need everyone else understanding that there's another resource to tap into efforts to grow this place. And not just government. It's businesses, it's in industry groups. It's about just feeding into what their efforts are. And we'll do our own stuff too. But that when it's the economic impact side, it's about the integration of the diaspora into existing efforts or new efforts that are being made. That's what other countries have done really well.
Okay, interesting. So then do you see other companies then coming to you and saying, hey, I want to throw XYZ such an event? And then you guys, so it's not just, so it's not you just throwing an event because you want to throw an event.
No,
You're working with companies to throw events that can benefit them and then the community.
as long as their values aligned.
Right, of course.
And I think that's the key thing is like, if they see it as an excellent opportunity to build a long-term relationship in a market, then yes. If it's like, I want to get in front of the room and sell, no,
that's not going to work.
It's not going to work because now you've taken away the value of Global Bluenosers for that community. They get pitched all the time, like in their lives and careers. They already get the hard sell. They're looking for relationships.
Yeah.
And so companies that come into it and say, I'm really trying to drive a long-term strategy in Toronto or Calgary or San Francisco, and I need to know who on the ground can support us in that and who can be those connectors. And we believe it should be other Nova Scotians. Okay. And then as long as we go into that, everyone eyes wide open, the diaspora group realizes that it's focused on this company, or, we're going to have a kitchen party, or we're going to have something maybe a bit more formal in support of company X.
Yeah.
For the most part, they're going to be okay with that because it'll align with why they joined.
Yeah.
The bargain then is for the company to hold up their end of it, is one, come into it authentically. And the thing I always tell everyone, the other side of the deal is then execute
during the event.
Or if you get advice or if you get a lead, follow up on it.
Right, the follow up. Yeah, because why would you throw an event then and not follow up with any of the?
And it's like, it's one of those things I've seen where it's like, if you get advice and don't do anything with it, the person that gave the advice is kind of like, well, why did I talk to you?
Yeah.
So if the execution is a critical part of it, and that's one of the things that I really look to, and sort of the companies that I work with that are best aligned with Global Bluenosers are really action oriented.
Are you going to be wanting to provide support for those companies with that execution, or is it not? No, we're just going to kind of do the.
At the end of the day, I'm still looking at what that can look like. I do want to have mechanisms to track impact. So, if you
that makes sense.
If you get mentorship or if you get leads or things like that, I want to be able to say this led to that, because I don't want to just be another like empty organization. I want to be able to say what the impact was. And so if we're supporting companies, I want to be able to say that introduction led to that sale. So that ability to have sort of a feedback loop with whoever we work with is going to be key. The processes for that is still what I'm kind of figuring out.
Right. Yeah. And then you'll have something to show companies as well too that come to you, say if it's good for, like, here's my, my KPIs or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, this is why it's good to work with us, because we can, hopefully provide, X, Y, Z or what have you. That's really interesting. You said earlier that you registered Global Bluenosers as a not-for-profit instead of going for a for-profit company. Why did you just decide on doing that? Because I imagine you probably went back and forth quite a bit. And then also a follow-up to that is, have you seen any new opportunities or new doors open up because you're not-for-profit as opposed to a for-profit?
Yeah, there's a couple reasons why. So, I had some people in my advisory group when I was deciding what to do next that pushed heavily to not do not-for-profit. This is why it's great to have a group of people around you, and they had excellent arguments. But there was also another group that had arguments for the not-for-profit model. The reason we went for that is sort of twofold. One is practical and one is emotional.
Okay.
So practically, there's a lot of opportunities that come from the not-for-profit, especially for what we were looking to do from a membership model, working with corporate partners and potentially with government. The not-for-profit makes it easier to do business and to partner.
That makes sense.
So there's a practicality to it. It opens up some opportunities on the accounting side and everything too. It's like all of that. Those are the sort of the boring behind the scenes basics, but critical when I'm trying to think about how to sustain an early stage, because it's like we weren't going to be something that we launch and suddenly we're like $1 million revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, okay, well, what is the structure going to be that allows us to do that in a way that is sustainable and supports us in other ways? The emotional side to it was partially signaling to the community what we are. So
Like we're not just trying to extract value from you.
So I never wanted anyone to think that I was building this community for me. I did not want to turn someone else's affinity for Nova Scotia into equity for me. That would go counter to everything I am.
Do you think people would see it that way though?
I don't think they would, but I would.
Okay, well that's kind of what's the most important.
And I'd want to be able to stand confidently in front of a room and say, this is for you. And I just happen to be the person currently leading the organization. But I wanted to feel good about myself when I'm talking to the community. And I think there's no better signal to the community that I'm not in this for me than to create an organization that I can literally be fired from.
Yeah.
So
right.
As a not-for-profit, we have to have a board.
Yep.
We have to have, and at the end of the day, yes, I came up with the idea of Global Bluenosers and I'm trying to turn it into something. But if I go off on the wrong direction, I can be fired from my own idea.
Yep.
And it can continue without me. Not like a company that just shuts down because it failed. They can just fire me and then just put someone else.
Bring someone else in, yeah.
That, for me, was the signal I wanted to give to people to say that this is meant to outlast us. That was the more emotional side. It has ended up being that I think the not-for-profit model has made it much easier to work on some of those larger partnerships that I'm trying to build. So corporate partnerships is key. To be able to go into those conversations as a federal not-for-profit, it aligns with their objectives. And so it has been really beneficial on that side of things. And I think we'll continue to realize it's going to have downfalls too. But for the early days, it's been quite beneficial.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had some people that were talking some really good points of why that you should go a for-profit. Have they kind of seen the light in the sense that it's a better idea now? Or are they still like, oh yeah, well?
I think the promise I made to them, and again, they're smart people. They're so good at it. Like they recognize that I was going to, weigh all the different options and talk to lawyers and talk to accountants and make a decision, for the way I really sort of balanced that was the foundational way of how we wanted to operate aligns. Is what I said, we're a not-for-profit that's going to operate like a for-profit. So we're going to be like a startup. Yeah. So one thing I promised everybody and I promised myself is once we establish as a not-for-profit, my first call was not going to be to government and ask for funding. I'm happy to work with government as a client and support their efforts, but
that's completely different from just asking for some cash.
To just say, I sustain me at 70%. That was a conversation I didn't want to have. One, I thought it was unfair to public dollars. I want to earn those dollars if I get them. So as a client, I earn them. They can hold me accountable. They can not hire me again. Core funding is really critical for a lot of organizations. For Global Bluenosers, it felt like it wasn't the right way to use public dollars.
That's really good. I like that.
To just go into it and say, give me your money. So for me, goes back to market factors. If we are not creating value for the diaspora, if we are not creating value for the corporate community in Nova Scotia, if we are not creating value for corporate partners, and if we're not creating value for people driving the economic development of the province, then we don't have an organization.
Yep.
So why artificially keep it alive?
Yep.
Our existence should be based on the market telling us that we've got something of value.
Yeah, and the value that you're going to bring to the market. Exactly. It's like what you're saying before, like know when to fold up shop. Like, yeah. And this is a great way. The financials usually can tell the story, right?
And that, like I said, that's why I've got that timeline for us. So like, we've kind of got a line in the sand to say we're going to evaluate up to this point to see, am I going to have all my entire operating budget by that time? No, but we'll have the signals to say that, yes, we are on the path to this can be you full time for the foreseeable future. But I need to say, I know what the strategy is. So I know that by that point I should have the signals. And then we can build on it from there. If I didn't do that, then I'd continually be able to lie to myself and say, next month. And so it's hard. But it's that self-awareness that I needed to have.
How are things going right now? Because you said it's been what, How long has it been since you incorporated?
So we incorporated in October of last year, and then I went full time into this in the end of March of this year.
So not very long at all.
It hasn't been very long, but literally this week I'm signing the contract on our member and community platform, which was the key milestone to start selling essentially the ability for people to join the community. I don't like calling it membership because that's not really, but
people understand it.
It's to join the community.
Yeah,
we needed somewhere for people to go. One of the key things was people wanted to be able to find others like themselves. Well, if we don't have a platform for them to go,
how are they going to do that? Yeah,
and I needed that sort of centralized CRM and everything to operate, and so that was the milestone that was probably the biggest one on my whiteboard that just had like stars all around it. It's like, you're not real until you do this. Well, the contract's in my inbox and I got to sign it.
Oh, okay.
So
can you divulge like what platform you decided to go with?
We're going to go with one called Glue Up.
Glow Up or Glue Up?
Glue Up.
Glue Up. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of them.
They're sort of mainly in the membership management space. So one of the things, there's a lot of community management platforms out there.
Yeah.
Hivebright, Mighty Network, Circle,
yeah.
all those ones. When I did the customer discovery, targeting my ideal member profile, who are like, they're ambitious, hardworking people, they've already got a ton of stuff. They've got a ton of platforms. They're not really interested in this amazing online experience. They need some place to go to find people, to find content, to sign up for events, but it does not need to be at the level of content creation, content hosting,
right?
and stuff that these other community management platforms have.
It's more for you going out there and spitting all that stuff out.
So they need to know where their home base is. The value is driven by me being more proactive in getting it to them and creating experiences for them to come together. So those require more of it's more like an association management platform.
Okay.
And it has a community element to it, but it's more of a community light, which is all I needed. So that's really exciting. It's also at a price point that I can afford.
Yeah.
So that
software sometimes can be really, really expensive.
I came across one that was $25,000 a year, and I was like, no.
It's just a hard no. I don't care what you do.
It looked really but this is where talking to your customers is critical. That platform, I was like, that's the gold standard. That's what I want. And then I talked to my customers, the potential members, and I was like, they don't want it.
They don't want that. Yeah.
That's too much. So now I'm going to be doing all this work to try to feed the beast of that licensing fee and not focusing on value to the members.
The community. Yeah.
When I went full time, I did 2 weeks solid, back to back, every day of customer discovery calls.
And that's through your existing network that you probably have, through LinkedIn, and
it was actually amazing. I put out a post and said I wanted to talk to people, and they just filled my calendar.
Did you have any specific qualifications for who you're looking for? Like when you're putting out, this is actually really good kind of thing about finding people to talk to so you can do those discovery calls, so you can figure out what exactly the market wants. So did you have any limitations on who could join? Because you don't want to waste your time and their time as well too. So like, how did you set up in terms of who you're looking for?
It wasn't super robust, but it was like, so you had to live outside the province. You had to have an affinity. Oddly enough, people will sign up to my events who actually have no connection to Nova Scotia, don't even know what Nova Scotia is. So you actually have to explicitly say that.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like, okay, so you have to have a connection to Nova Scotia. You have to be working in a professional career of some kind. So you're focused on growing that career. So there's that element to it. You're either working or you're building a business or whatever like that. And that you're willing to talk about your experience with member programs.
Yeah.
So it was pretty basic.
But that's good enough though. Yeah. That's all you need, because that narrows it down quite a bit. Just those few questions.
It made it easy to say who was in and who was out.
Yeah.
And it was really critical. Those conversations were focused on previous membership experiences. Where have you held memberships? What has your experience been with those? Did you stay? Did you go? Why or why not? And getting insights into, I think one of the things I really learned this at Volta, and I'm not as good as they are at Volta on this, but it's like, don't focus on what people tell you they're going to do. Look at what they've already done.
Right. Yeah.
Prior behavior is a way better indicator of future behavior.
Well, things that people say, you almost like, I can't trust what you're saying because
No.
of course you're going to say that.
So-
Or face to face, you don't want to insult
Yeah.
me or like, oh, of course I'd buy your product.
Yeah, people exactly. You know, people are always going to say that, but it's like, but will you?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was really understanding what made you enthusiastically renew a membership or being a part of a community. And I think it's really interesting. Podcasts have done this in a really fascinating way. My wife follows one called Do Go On, and it's based in Australia. And they've done a spectacular. The community is like self-driven, but it's really spectacular. It's a great podcast.
Yeah. What's it called?
Do Go On.
Do Go On.
And they kind of pick a topic, and there are 3 comedians in Australia, and they pick a topic and they go deep dive on it. So they just, as a group, talk about this topic and kind of educate you on it.
And they're comedians, so it's probably funny too.
Yeah, so it's funny, but it's like, it's created this whole sense of community that's driven by like a Facebook group or whatever. And they do really fascinating things where it's like, you know, you get paired up and you can send each other a hat from where you're from or food from where you're from. It's really interesting. But it's like I feel like there's been an evolution in how community and through like, you know, you join the Patreon and you become part of this. It's changing with podcasts as opposed to the traditional membership associations. So it's that blending of the two that I'm kind of in is podcast community, diaspora community, traditional membership organization.
Right.
So it's kind of like a little bit of all that. But so that was a really important 2 weeks for me, because people told me honestly why they hated their memberships in the past. And it was like, okay.
Can you give me just a quick idea as to maybe the one thing that stands out as like the worst thing about memberships that people do?
And it seems really basic. Inactivity. I joined and I don't know why I joined. I don't ever hear from anyone. There's no value coming. Like there's no participation.
Participation from the other members or participation from like the main person?
I will say that if other members aren't participating, it's on the organization. It's for it's for the host. So it's usually what happened is that they've joined an organization that is not facilitating connection and not facilitating community. So it's like you join and you hear from them when you have to renew. It's like they'll put out
the handout.
Yeah, like they'll put out a couple events here and there, but there's no two-way conversation. You need to always be listening to your members to understand what's valuable to them. And it's a ton of work to maintain any sense of engagement. If you expect the other community members to drive engagement, it's going to fail.
Right.
You just have to be feeding that beast all the time and understanding what is the level. So like for me, one of the common things that came across the board was like, if every week or every 2 weeks I get a digest of what's been happening in the community and what's coming up with maybe some fun news stories, that's good. That's good. And I was like, oh, it was like, so they don't want to be on the platform every single day engaged in conversation. They'll go in there, but they'll more so go in when they need to they're going, you know, someone living in London is taking a trip to Switzerland for business. They'll pop in and be like, oh, who's in the community?
Who's there?
In Zurich. That's valuable, but that's a point in time. It's not a continuum. You even see that with LinkedIn is people log in randomly. It's so to think that you're going to get them every single day is just irrational. So it's like, you got to think about how you're getting it. How is the perception of value defined? And for them, a lot of it came back to, we want to be able to get together in person. We want to get the information brought to us. We want to get it coming to us. And I think that piece of being able to be active in impact was really important. Creating avenues for people to stay engaged with the province was really important.
When are you planning on launching it? And when are you going to like basically unveil it to the world in a sense?
So the plan is to launch it this fall. So September, October. Got to kind of see what the implementation plan from them looks like. But they had said sort of like 6 weeks to get it up and running and for me to get trained up and everything like that. In the interim, the thing I'm really excited for is to launch the waitlist. So the thing that's great about Global Bluenosers is unintentionally, I've been building the brand since April of 2023.
Right.
So it's not like I'm coming into the world and be like, hey guys, I've created this community, join up.
Yeah.
I've been dripping.
People are like, who are you?
It's like, I've been dripping this for close to 2 years.
A lot of people probably know that it's coming too.
People knew, and I've referenced it and said it, and I talked to people in person about it. And it's also the natural evolution, because like as it grows, people are like, how do I find regular meetups? How do I join? It's like, excellent. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. So the wait
again, validating that
idea along the way. So following that sort of SaaS mentality of like, okay, we'll launch a wait list. And so I've got the page built for when it's going to launch. So the globalbluenosers.ca is going to switch from what it is. It's going to switch to a whole
to the wait list,
list, which has got a whole new tone. It's like under the language of of where we're going. So it's the evolution has been, it was very folksy to very focused. It still is Nova Scotia. It's still going to have all those elements. But the tagline we're using is that it's the global community for ambitious blue nosers.
Oh, that's really good. That's good.
It's and that fits on both sides. The companies have to be ambitious blue noser companies. The people need to be ambitious blue nosers that are looking to create the best version of themselves in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
So that is going to be sort of the new framing. So that's the plan, is to launch that in the fall. And I've got some targets set that I hope we're going to hit. And I really, it works out well. I'm relaunching the podcast next week.
Well, that's exciting.
So have started to get that up and running, because I think that storytelling element is really critical. Like the three pillars of the community are belonging, storytelling, and economic impact. So that, we create a sense of belonging in everything we do. That is our existence, is that people feel like they belong to the community, they belong to Nova Scotia. But that is felt. The storytelling is that we make sure that we're aggressive in telling the stories of our people, of our community, of our businesses, and of our impact as an organization, but also as a province and people on the world. And then the economic impact is what we talked about, is that we're going to take those things and harness them for good to drive the province forward, to create the conditions that for someone that wants to choose to stay rather than leave, we've made it that much easier because of the impact of the organization on the broader economic realities of the province. So that's the plan. And the more I put it out there, the more I can't back away from it.
Can't back away, yeah. But it's always a good idea to tell people your plans too, because again, that's just more touch points for feedback.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I won't press you too much in terms of what your specific goals are or what have you. But I imagine just from talking to you and meeting you that they're probably pretty ambitious. So I'm really rooting for you. I think it's phenomenal. I really love your idea. So I think it's going to be really good and something that the community is going to really enjoy.
I appreciate it.
One thing that you touched upon is that you're going to be putting out this wait list, and that you've gotten through LinkedIn that you just put stuff out there like, oh, I want some feedback, and people just fill up your calendar. And you mentioned that you've been on LinkedIn for quite a few years, just throwing stuff out there about Halifax and just how much you love it, all that kind of stuff, or Nova Scotia even. So how important do you think that you going on LinkedIn and just being yourself and putting stuff out there, like how important was that in the growth of yourself and into bringing Global Bluenosers up to where it is today?
So LinkedIn has been critical in it. And I have a love-hate relationship with the platform.
Like most people do with most social media platforms. Yeah.
I'd say, in the day that we're talking now, we're kind of a couple weeks into an algorithm change that has really changed the platform probably more significantly than I've ever seen.
Oh, really? Eh? Is it more the focus of video, I think, is what they're doing? Or
not even so much that. It's whatever they've done. What's happened is, you might have seen this, is you're seeing a lot of old content, like weeks old content. And it's kind of trying to train itself on what you like and so it's feeding all this old content.
Right. Not necessarily the newest stuff. But.
Yeah. And they're trying to claim that they're readjusting for content that isn't meant for impressions, but is meant for value and conversation. I have opinions on that, because I think that's sort of, it skews to a certain type of creator and skews away from other types of creators. I'm not seeing a lot of the content I want to see. And it's driven impressions and engagements way down for everybody. That all being said, I'm still only here because of LinkedIn. It has been a really critical element of it. It's a social media where I felt I could be me as a professional, but also as a person. Like I think where things worked for me was that I went into it not looking at it like a professional platform. It was me as a professional, but it's also like I don't believe that there's a
But
division.
you want to be one and the same. It's like, this is me.
Yeah,
You're going
like
to see me as who I am. Do
yeah,
you want to do business with me like this? Yes, no. And
yeah. It's, I mean,
yeah.
I always look at it like when we hire people, we hire human beings, and they can't turn off their lives when they come into the office. So I say I think for me, the defining moment that I found that LinkedIn was a place that I wanted to stay was actually, and this is really bizarre because it's not business related at all, was actually when my father passed away. So in November of yeah, I mean, my God, it's almost 2 years now. So like November of 2023, um, my dad passed away and hit me really hard. And so I shared that because I was like, you know what? If I don't, everyone's gonna notice that something's off about Sean.
Right.
Because I mean, like right away, I messaged my boss. I was like, "This just happened. I need to take a few days." And he was like, "Oh my God!" Like,
Yeah,
yes,
of
like so.
course. Yeah.
So I had incredible support from the entire team at Volta and that was actually something that was really telling about the culture that they were like that for me. Um, but then I shared it on LinkedIn, and it was fascinating. It was another one of those experiences of true community, because suddenly I just got inundated with messages of people that had lost their fathers. They just sent me direct messages. They're like, listen, this is what I went through. And it's not going to be the same for you, but this is how it felt for me. And this is how it still feels 20 years later. And it was so important for me because it was just like, I wasn't alone anymore. If I'd done that on Instagram, I don't think I would have gotten the same response because the people that were responding to me were people that I was sitting in boardrooms with. There were people that I was interacting with day to day from a business perspective, not just a nameless face or account on Instagram that I know that way. Like these were human beings that I knew, and suddenly they're telling me something that I had no idea. We have this shared experience, and they got me through that. That community got me through it. Um, that's where, for me, I saw the value of showing up authentically on LinkedIn. Because it allows you to connect human to human.
That must have made you feel a lot less lonely in that situation.
Absolutely. It's we all, I mean, we all know it. Like, that if we all live long lives, we're going to lose our parents. That's an unfortunate reality of life.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a club I was going to join. That doesn't make it any
Yeah.
less difficult. And it just, I think it was being able to see people at their most vulnerable. Suddenly you don't see the masks that we put on at boardroom tables. It's just, I was talking, I remember messaging with people who were pretty influential people. And I'm like, they were just like a hurt son or a hurt daughter. Like they were still hurting. And I was like, oh my God, that changes everything I feel about them. And I really believe that it was the way that we create community and networks on LinkedIn that allowed me to have that experience. And yeah, from a Global Bluenosers perspective, it absolutely has been critical because it's allowed me to deliver my message to the audience I wanted to deliver it to in a way that I couldn't have on any other social media platform.
Yeah.
And it's allowed me to kind of come into my own as a person and as a creator.
Yeah. And those connections, though, that you were talking about that you create, it goes even beyond business because you're creating these personal connections and you're creating these relationships between people that are going to last hopefully well beyond when you're doing business. But even from a business standpoint, when you make those personal connections, you never know when they're going to, go to fruition or whatever, or come, or I don't know, not come to fruition, but just like when you're going to get that value back from it in a sense. In 2 years, you might get that person who's like, oh, I remember that conversation I had with them, and someone is looking for that type of service. I'm going to get you to go see this guy because we connected and, we share something. So there's always those things that always kind of end up, working out in your favor when you just have that community of people that people trust. And
well, you just said the word. It comes back to trust. I think as human beings, we trust people when we feel like we actually know them. And so that ability to create relationships without sort of the veneer that people like to put on. So like those conversations I had, I trusted that person a lot more because they shared something with me that was deeply personal. and I was able to share back to them. And that was it. Like, and then we just went on with our lives, and they just said, message me anytime. So I trust them now because it's based in something more than just that we saw each other at an event. We connected. And so trust is such a critical element. And it's one of the things that's why I love the Bluenosers community, is because, and this is what I always tell companies, if you're doing business internationally, if you're doing business locally, whatever, the hardest thing to do is establish trust. If you are going into the UK and I put you in front of a room of Nova Scotians, they trust you and you can trust them. That's a trust to be lost, not gained. How much time have you saved? Now you can very quickly lose that trust.
Yep.
That in and of itself is such a deeply impactful part of what Bluenosers is meant to be, is that it's a space where you have established trust because of shared identity and shared experiences. Right. So that is a really key part, because people have spent a ton of money to falsely create trust through consultants and things like that don't really. It's why I love podcasts. Yeah, is because I think podcasts and any type of storytelling creates a sense of trust,
because you get to know the real person in a sense, and it's not so much scripted as just a 2-minute video that's just like, talking points or what have you. Yeah. I think that's a really good takeaway. Maybe if I could summarize this a little bit from your lessons with LinkedIn, is that whatever social platform you decide to go on, be authentic, be yourself, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there and be vulnerable in a sense. Not say anything that's too crazy, but just be vulnerable in who you are and what you do. And you're going to attract the like-minded, the same similar types of people. And you're going to be able to build that trust so that when the time comes, when it's like, hey guys, I'm launching a new product, you want to join my wait list? That trust is already built and it's there. And then it's a really great stepping stone to move forward from.
I think you captured it perfectly. And it's one of those things that I tell anybody with LinkedIn, it's a long game. I don't believe in relationships, in networking, in LinkedIn, whatever you want to call it. There are no hacks. Yeah. The hacks will they might give you that spike. Hey, it worked. It didn't. Yeah. But you've already lost your money.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you want to view LinkedIn for what it is, it's a long-term investment. And if you are going to be authentic, I've heard so many other founders say this to me. You don't realize how many people are passively watching you on LinkedIn that never engage with it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like, I will have people say something to me about a post I did, and I'm like, I didn't even know you saw that. It's
Well, how would you know? Yeah.
If they didn't hit like, if they didn't comment, you don't know that they saw it.
Right.
They're just an empty number in the impressions.
Yeah.
So I think it is one of those things that if you keep showing up and if you just allow yourself to be authentic, people want you to be authentic. You know, they don't want you to be like, the world is falling apart authentic, but they want you to share,
my roof is this and that.
Yeah. It's like, let's not, we don't have to go into like, doom scrolling type of authenticity. Yeah. But just like, we all have experiences and we want to hear about other people's experiences, because even it goes back to, talking about at the very beginning about, sitting and breaking bread with people over a table. You might come from entirely different places, but there are shared experiences within both of those. And it's the same thing with LinkedIn, is if you share your experience, someone else is going to see themselves in that, and they like you more because of it. Yep. They trust you a little bit more because of it.
So what can we say is next for Global Bluenosers? We talked about you had some goals and what have you, but maybe if there's anything you'd like to share about where you kind of see things going in the I guess maybe the short and medium term.
Obviously the launch is the big one, but for us, we've got some more events coming up. We've got some more refining too. So like the plan is to be in Dubai in the fall to do our first event in the Middle East.
That'll be fun.
I'm really excited for that one.
Have you been there before?
No, this is going to be I've most of my travel has mainly been North America and Europe. So this is the first of me really broadening out. I was hoping to do it in February. It's gotten pushed. So that one I'm really excited about, because there's a huge community there. So that, the continuation of that, For me, the big next things, honestly, I early days I wanted to always have something to announce. Now I realize it's like what do you need to focus on? And for me, it's continuing the community building. But the podcast is going to drop again, so absolutely people should go and check out Global Bluenosers and go back and start listening to that again. They're great conversations with a new focus. So our new focus is having our guests talk about their perfect 24 hours in Nova Scotia. So
Interesting. Okay.
I give them the hypothetical. It's like, okay, I'm going to let you come home, but you only get to come home for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So
what do you do?
So what are you going to do? And it's so insightful as to what's valuable to people.
Right. Yeah.
So that's launching.
That's actually going to be really cool. Sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you there. That's going to be really cool for people that are new to Nova Scotia or haven't been, to know of these probably unknown places of where to go that you never really think of, because that's the person's top thing that they're going to do. It's probably not going to be, well, some people it might be, go to the harborfront, but it probably, be a little bit more than the same touristy stuff.
The one piece of advice I'll give to anybody that is coming to Nova Scotia for the first time or has recently moved to Nova Scotia, get lost in Nova Scotia. Get off the highways. Yeah. If you take a random road, you will eventually hit a town.
Yeah, that's true.
It might be really small, but you might hit my hometown. And it's literally a crossroads. That's the town.
Yeah.
And there's a Home Hardware and there's a grocery store, but there's a museum. So maybe you can go check out the museum. But getting lost is the best thing. Get off the beaten track. And that's what a lot of people have said.
Yeah.
And then just eat a lot of good food. Just stop at every restaurant you can stop at. But yeah, so no, it's going to be a really nice resource for that, to have those stories. So the podcast is dropping, the membership is dropping, the events are going to keep on going. And then we've got a few events to evolve those experiences. So we've been doing the kitchen party things. One of the key things is if you do the same thing over and over again, people get bored. So we're kind of creating a suite of event styles, different things that feed into all three of those pillars of belonging, storytelling, and economic impact. So we're going to be launching some different events in the next little while, and we're going to start launching some opportunities for companies to start tapping into it in a more facilitated way through in-person experiences.
You say we, so I know there's yourself, because you said you just went full time and you have a board.
Yeah.
Who else is helping you with this?
So I always say that we're doing this on behalf of the entire community, but one of the execution strategies we're going to have is to focus on a few key cities where the highest concentrations are, and have on the ground volunteer leadership for that. Okay. And I'm going to very much view those folks as part of the team.
Right.
Like they're, we're going to look at ways to bring them back every year for strategy sessions to really empower them to take what I've, been able to build and just give it an injection of nitro. Just let's just go.
That's awesome.
I like to talk we because, I'm not a big fan of focusing on me, but it's
well, it is more than just you.
It is, and then it's a community. So this is nothing if those people didn't show up at the events. This is nothing if those people didn't join the podcast. Nothing if the organizations that have sponsored me to date didn't do that. Like it's very much a we. And I do have two excellent board members who joined early days, took the jump with me, and they're amazing for doing that. And they've been very much sort of engaged in the operational side, which is excellent.
Awesome. Yeah. Operations is, I don't know, if you don't like it, then it's just, well, it's something you have to do, right?
You have to do it. I told this to a group of young entrepreneurs the other week. The thing I hate most about being a founder is accounting. I can't stand the finances. That's why I was an arts grad, because I was never going to survive as a finance person. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm having those other folks around me to help support me. Like I've got a fractional CFO who helps out. And Xero is my favorite thing in the world because I've got a centralized accounting platform to save me. Right. But yeah, so everybody plays a really key part in helping make it run.
For the people that want to know more about Global Bluenosers, where can they go?
So the main places to go, I'd say find us on LinkedIn or Instagram. Those are the two social platforms we use the most. globalbluenosers.ca, which is going to be soon transitioning, and then find me on LinkedIn. And then obviously check out the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, wherever else you might get your shows.
Under the same name.
All under Global Bluenosers.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, we're going to put all those links in the description and show notes and all that kind of stuff. Sean, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you and hearing about what you're doing with Global Bluenosers. It's fascinating, and I think it's something so positive for the community, and I'm really excited to see where it goes over the next coming years.
Well, thanks so much for the invite, and congratulations to you for everything that you're doing. Thanks for inviting me on to talk things through, and more than anything, good luck to you on your own journey, because it's everyone's journey is unique, and I think you've got some really fascinating goals that you've got, and I'm wishing you the best of luck in that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much.